There exists a secret code in the corridors of power, a blueprint so profound and yet so accessible that it separates the ordinary manager from the extraordinary leader. This code is not written in business schools, though they try to teach it. It is not found in textbooks, though scholars attempt to capture it. It is discovered in the daily practices, the quiet decisions, and the unwavering principles of those who have built empires from nothing and transformed industries forever. Today, reveal to you the leadership principles that have guided the world's most successful CEOs, principles that you can adopt, starting this very moment, to transform not only your career, but the lives of everyone you touch. Leadership is not a title you earn or a position you hold. Leadership is a choice you make every single day. When Steve Jobs returned to Apple in 1997, the company was 90 days from bankruptcy. He did not save Apple with superior technology alone. He saved it with superior leadership principles that you can apply whether you lead a team of 5 or 5,000. The first principle that separates great leaders from good managers is this: they think in decades, not quarters. While others focus on the immediate successful CEOs, plant seeds for forests they may never see fully grown. Jeff Bezos exemplified this when he told his shareholders that Amazon would prioritize long-term growth over short-term profits. And for years, he was criticized, mocked, and questioned. Today, Amazon is one of the most valuable companies on earth because Bezos understood that great leaders are gardeners of the future, not harvesters of the present. You must develop this same long-term thinking. When you make a decision today, ask yourself not what it will accomplish this week or this month, but what it will create 5 years from now. This shift in perspective transforms every choice you make from tactical to strategic, from reactive to proactive. The second principle that defines exceptional leaders is their obsession with people, not processes. While average managers create complicated systems and endless procedures, great leaders create environments where ordinary people do extraordinary things. Satya Nadella transformed Microsoft not by changing their technology, but by changing their culture. He replaced a culture of competition with a culture of collaboration, a culture of knowing with a culture of learning. When you lead, remember that your job is not to be the smartest person in the room, but to make everyone in the room smarter. You do this by asking better questions, not by providing all the answers. You do this by listening more than you speak, and by believing in people's potential even when they do not believe in it themselves. Warren Buffett has said that his most important decision is not which stocks to buy, but which people to trust. Great leaders are talent magnets. They attract exceptional people because exceptional people want to work for leaders who challenge them, support them, and believe in them. The third principle that distinguishes legendary CEOs is their relationship with failure. While most people avoid failure at all costs, great leaders embrace it as their greatest teacher. Reed Hastings nearly destroyed Netflix by trying to split it into 2 companies, a decision so unpopular that customers fled and stock prices plummeted. But instead of defending his mistake or blaming external factors, Hastings publicly acknowledged his error, reversed course, and used the experience to make Netflix more responsive to customer needs. This humility in the face of failure is what separates leaders who learn from those who merely survive. When you fail, and you will fail, resist the temptation to make excuses or point fingers. Instead, ask 3 questions. What did I learn? How can I apply this lesson? What would I do differently next time? This transforms failure from a setback into a setup for future success. The fourth principle is perhaps the most counterintuitive. Great leaders say no more often than they say yes. Steve Jobs was famous for his ability to focus, which meant saying no to thousands of good ideas to say yes to a few great ones. Apple could have made dozens of different products, but Jobs insisted on perfection in a few rather than mediocrity in many. As a leader, you will be presented with countless opportunities, initiatives, and ideas. Your success will not be determined by how many you accept, but by how carefully you choose which ones deserve your time, energy, and resources. Learn to say no graciously but firmly to anything that does not align with your core mission and values. Every yes to something unimportant is a no to something that could be transformational. The fifth principle that drives extraordinary leaders is their commitment to continuous learning. The moment you think you know everything you need to know is the moment you begin to fall behind. Oprah Winfrey reads voraciously, Bill Gates takes annual thinking weeks to reflect and learn, and Mark Cuban studies industries obsessively before investing. They understand that in a rapidly changing world, the half-life of knowledge is shrinking. What you knew yesterday may be obsolete today, and what you learn today may be essential tomorrow. Make learning a non-negotiable part of your daily routine. Read books, attend seminars, seek mentors, and engage with people who challenge your thinking. Surround yourself with individuals who are smarter than you in different areas and humble enough to learn from them. The sixth principle is the power of clear and consistent communication. Great leaders are great communicators, not because they are eloquent speakers, but because they can take complex ideas and make them simple and actionable. When John F. Kennedy announced the goal of landing on the moon, he did not use technical jargon or complex explanation. He painted a picture so clear and compelling that an entire nation could understand and rally behind it. Your ability to communicate your vision, your expectations, and your values will determine whether people follow you out of obligation or inspiration. Practice explaining your ideas in ways that anyone can understand. Use stories, analogies, and examples that connect with people's experiences and emotions. Remember that people do not follow logic. They follow leaders who help them feel understood and part of something bigger than themselves. The seventh principle is the courage to make difficult decisions quickly. While others procrastinate and hope problems will solve themselves, great leaders gather the information they need and decide. They understand that a good decision implemented quickly is better than a perfect decision that comes too late. Andy Grove of Intel was famous for his philosophy of only the paranoid survive, which meant making tough decisions before they became desperate ones. When he decided to exit the memory business to focus on microprocessors, it was painful because memory had been Intel's foundation. But that decision saved the company and positioned it for decades of growth. As a leader, you will face decisions that have no perfect answer. In these moments, remember that indecision is also a decision, usually the worst one. Gather the facts you can. Consult with people you trust, and then decide. You can always adjust course later, but you cannot recapture lost time. The eighth principle is leading by example rather than by authority. Your title may give you the right to tell people what to do, but your behavior determines whether they will want to do it. Howard Schultz built Starbucks not by demanding excellence, but by demonstrating it. He treated every employee as a partner, provided benefits that other companies did not offer, and showed up with the same energy and commitment he expected from others. People watch what you do far more closely than they listen to what you say. If you want your team to work late when necessary, be willing to work late yourself. If you want them to treat customers with respect, treat your team with respect.
If you want them to embrace change, show them how you embrace change. Your behavior sets the standard for everyone around you. The ninth principle is the art of building trust through transparency and authenticity. In an age where information travels instantly and secrets are impossible to keep, the leaders who thrive are those who choose transparency over secrecy and authenticity over perfection. When Southwest Airlines faced financial difficulties, CEO Gary Kelly did not hide the challenges from employees. Instead, he shared the reality of the situation, explained what needed to be done, and asked for their help. Because employees trusted his honesty, they rallied to support the company through difficult times.
Trust is built in drops and lost in buckets. Every interaction you have is an opportunity to make a deposit in or withdrawal from the trust account you have with others. Be honest about what you know and honest about what you do not know. Admit your mistakes quickly and take responsibility for your decisions. Keep your promises, and if you cannot keep them, explain why as soon as possible. The 10th principle is the commitment to developing other leaders. Great leaders understand that their success is not measured by what they accomplish, but by what they enable others to accomplish. They see their role as multiplying their impact through the people they develop. Jack Welch was known for his focus on developing talent at General Electric. He spent 40% of his time on people development, believing that the quality of leaders at every level determined the quality of the organization. When you invest time in developing others, you create a legacy that extends far beyond your tenure. Look for opportunities to mentor, coach, and challenge the people around you. Help them discover their strengths, overcome their weaknesses, and achieve goals they never thought possible. The 11th principle is maintaining optimism in the face of adversity. Leaders are dealers in hope. When times are tough, when challenges seem insurmountable, when others lose faith, great leaders maintain a positive outlook that inspires others to keep going. This does not mean being unrealistic or ignoring problems. It means choosing to focus on solutions rather than dwelling on obstacles. Walt Disney faced bankruptcy multiple times, was told that mice on screen would never work, and was fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination. But he maintained an optimistic vision of what was possible and inspired others to believe in that vision.
When you face setbacks, and you will remember that your attitude is contagious. If you panic, your team will panic. If you remain calm and focused on solutions, your team will follow your lead. The 12th principle is the discipline of consistent action. Great leaders understand that extraordinary results come from ordinary actions performed consistently over time. They do not rely on bursts of inspiration or heroic efforts. They rely on the compound effect of daily disciplines and habits that align with their goals. Ray Kroc did not build McDonald's through grand gestures, but through an obsessive focus on consistency in every detail, from the temperature of the fries to the cleanliness of the restaurants. This attention to consistent execution is what separated McDonald's from countless other burger joints. Identify the key activities that drive success in your role and commit to performing them consistently regardless of how you feel or what else is happening around you. Success is not about what you do occasionally, but about what you do consistently. The 13th principle is the wisdom of surrounding yourself with people who complement your weaknesses. No leader is complete. Every great CEO has areas where they are not naturally gifted, and the best ones are honest about these limitations. They build teams that fill the gaps in their knowledge and abilities. Bill Gates partnered with Steve Ballmer because Ballmer had strengths in business operations that complemented Gates' technical vision. Together, they built Microsoft into a software empire that neither could have created alone. Conduct an honest assessment of your strengths and weaknesses. Where are you naturally gifted? Where do you struggle?
And deliberately seek people who excel in the areas where you are weak. Great leaders are secure enough to hire people who are better than they are in specific areas. The 14th principle is the practice of making values-based decisions. When faced with difficult choices, great leaders do not just ask what is profitable or convenient. They ask what is right. They have a clear set of values that guide their decisions, even when those decisions are costly in the short term. When Patagonia's founder, Ivan Chouinard, donated the company to fight climate change, he chose values over wealth. This decision reinforced the company's mission and strengthened customer loyalty in ways that traditional marketing never could. Define your core values clearly and make them non-negotiable. When you face pressure to compromise these values for short-term gain, remember that your reputation... The 15th principle is the ability to see opportunity in crisis. While others see only problems, great leaders see possibilities. They understand that every crisis creates a vacuum that can be filled by those bold enough to act. During the 2008 financial crisis, while many companies were cutting back and playing defense, Reed Hastings expanded Netflix's streaming service aggressively.
He saw that people staying home more would create increased demand for home entertainment. This bold move during difficult times positioned Netflix as the dominant streaming platform. When you encounter a crisis, resist the natural tendency to panic or retreat. Instead, ask yourself what opportunities this situation might create. How can you serve customers better? What needs are emerging? How can you position yourself for growth when conditions improve? The 16th principle is the commitment to innovation and adaptation. The graveyard of business is filled with companies that were successful but refused to change. Great leaders understand that what got them here will not get them there. They continuously reinvent their businesses, their strategies, and themselves. Reed Hastings transformed Netflix from a DVD by mail service to a streaming platform to a content creator. Each transformation required killing successful business models to create even more successful ones. This willingness to cannibalize their own success is what separates enduring companies from one-hit wonders. Regularly examine your business, your strategies, and your methods. What worked yesterday may not work tomorrow. Be willing to abandon successful practices if they prevent you from embracing better ones. The 17th principle is the power of serving others rather than being served. The greatest leaders see their role as service to their customers, their employees, and their communities. They understand that leadership is not about having people work for you, but about working for something greater than yourself. When Mark Benioff built Salesforce, he embedded a culture of service into the company's DNA through the 1-1-1 model, donating 1% of equity, product, and employee time to charitable causes.
This commitment to service attracted employees who wanted to make a difference and customers who wanted to support companies with purpose. Ask yourself how you can serve the people you lead. What do they need to be successful? How can you remove obstacles from their path? How can you help them grow and achieve their goals? When you shift from asking what people can do for you to what you can do for people, you transform from a manager into a true leader. The 18th principle is the discipline of measuring what matters. Great leaders are obsessed with metrics, but not just any metrics. They focus on the key indicators that truly drive long-term success. They understand the difference between activity and achievement, between being busy and being productive. When Jeff Bezos was building Amazon, he focused relentlessly on customer satisfaction metrics, even when Wall Street wanted him to focus on short-term profits.
He knew that happy customers would eventually lead to sustainable profits, while chasing quarterly earnings could sacrifice long-term growth. Identify the 3 to 5 metrics that best predict success in your role and monitor them religiously. Share these metrics with your team so everyone understands what success looks like and can align their efforts accordingly. The 19th principle is the art of making tough personnel decisions with compassion. Great leaders understand that sometimes being kind requires being firm. They know when to coach and when to make changes, when to give second chances and when to cut their losses. They make these decisions based on what is best for the team and the mission, not what is easiest or most comfortable. When Jack Welch implemented his rank-and-yank system at General Electric, it was controversial but effective. He believed that keeping underperformers in place was unfair to high performers and harmful to the organization.
While his methods were extreme, the principle remains: great leaders make difficult people decisions for the greater good. When someone on your team is not performing, despite coaching and support, address the situation directly and quickly. Delaying difficult conversations only makes them harder and often unfair to everyone involved. The 20th principle is the vision to think globally while acting locally. Successful CEOs understand that in today's interconnected world, local decisions have global implications, and global trends affect local markets. They think beyond their immediate circumstances to understand broader patterns and opportunities. When Zhang Ruimin transformed the appliance manufacturer Haier, he studied global best practices while remaining deeply rooted in understanding Chinese customers. This combination of global thinking and local application helped Haier become one of the world's largest appliance companies. Stay informed about trends in your industry, your country, and your world. Understand how global events might affect your local business and how your local decisions might scale globally. The 21st principle is the courage to stand alone when necessary. Leadership sometimes requires taking unpopular positions, making decisions that others disagree with, and standing firm in the face of criticism. Great leaders are willing to be misunderstood in the short term to do what they believe is right in the long term. When Tim Cook took over Apple, many people expected him to simply continue Steve Jobs' legacy. Instead, he made Apple more socially conscious, more inclusive, and more focused on privacy. Even when these positions were controversial or costly, he understood that leadership requires having the courage of your convictions. There will be times when you must make decisions that are unpopular but necessary.
In this moment, remember that leadership, the 22nd principle, is the wisdom of balancing confidence with humility. Great leaders project confidence in their vision and decisions while remaining humble about their limitations and open to feedback. This balance allows them to inspire others while continuing to learn and grow. When Satya Nadella became CEO of Microsoft, he could have relied on his technical expertise and past successes. Instead, he adopted a growth mindset, admitting what he did not know and asking for help from others. This humility, combined with clear vision and decisive action, helped him lead Microsoft's remarkable transformation. Be confident in your ability to learn, adapt, and overcome challenges, but remain humble about what you do not know and grateful for the people who help you succeed. The 23rd principle is the practice of celebrating others' successes more than your own. Great leaders understand that their success comes through the success of others, and they make sure that recognition and credit
flow downward while responsibility flows upward. When their teams win, they shine the spotlight on the team members who made it possible. When things go wrong, they take responsibility and shield their teams from blame. This creates loyalty, trust, and motivation that no amount of money can buy. When Southwest Airlines became profitable while other airlines struggled, CEO Herb Kelleher consistently credited the employees for the company's success. He celebrated their contributions publicly and ensured they shared in the financial rewards. This created a culture where people felt valued and motivated to go above and beyond. Make it a habit to recognize and celebrate the achievements of the people around you. Give credit generously and specifically.
Help others advance their careers and achieve their goals. When you succeed because others succeed, you create a legacy of leaders who will continue your impact long after you are gone. These principles are not theories to be debated, but practices to be implemented. They are not suggestions for someday, but guidelines for today. The difference between good leaders and great leaders is not in knowing these principles, but in living them consistently, especially when it is difficult, inconvenient, or costly. Leadership is not about being perfect, but about being purposeful. It is not about having all the answers, but about asking the right questions. It is not about being followed, but about being worth following. The choice to lead is available to you right now, regardless of your title, your position, or your circumstances. You can choose to think long-term, develop others, embrace failure, communicate clearly, and serve something greater than yourself. You can choose to be the kind of leader that others want to follow, not because they have to, but because they believe in you and what you represent. The world needs leaders who understand these principles and have the courage to live by them. The question is not whether you can learn to lead, but whether you will choose to lead. The principles are here, tested by the most successful leaders in history, and available to anyone willing to embrace them. The only question that remains is this: what will you do with what you now know? Your leadership journey begins with your next decision, your next interaction, your next choice to put these principles into practice. The future is waiting for leaders who will build it with wisdom, courage, and service.
Will you be one of them? The 24th principle is the mastery of emotional intelligence in leadership. Great CEOs understand that logic may drive decisions, but emotions drive people. They have learned to read the emotional currents in their organizations and respond appropriately. When Jacinda Ardern led New Zealand through the Christchurch shooting and the COVID-19 pandemic, she demonstrated that empathy and strength are not opposites, but partners. She showed genuine emotion while maintaining decisive leadership, proving that vulnerability can be a source of strength rather than weakness. Develop your ability to recognize and respond to emotions, both your own and others. Learn to remain calm under pressure while acknowledging the feelings of those around you. Practice active listening, not just to the words people say, but to the emotions behind those words. When people feel heard and understood, they are more likely to trust your leadership and follow your direction. The 25th principle is the art of strategic patience combined with tactical urgency. Exceptional leaders understand when to move fast and when to wait. They execute daily tasks with urgency while maintaining patience for long-term strategic goals. Warren Buffett exemplifies this balance perfectly. He will wait years for the right investment opportunity, showing incredible patience, but when the right opportunity appears, he acts with decisive speed. This combination of strategic patience and tactical urgency allows great leaders to build sustainable success while remaining responsive to immediate opportunities and threats. Learn to distinguish between what requires immediate action and what benefits from careful timing. Be urgently patient with your long-term vision and patiently urgent with your daily execution. The 26th principle is the commitment to building organizational culture that outlasts individual leaders. Great CEOs understand that their most important legacy is not the profits they generate, but the culture they create. This culture becomes the operating system that guides decisions and behaviors long after they are gone. Carnegie at Zappos was obsessed with creating a culture where employees would choose to work even if they had to take a pay cut. He understood that culture was not something you create once, but something you nurture every day through hundreds of small decisions and interactions. Culture is built through the stories you tell, the behaviors you reward, the problems you tolerate, and the values you demonstrate. Every meeting you run, every email you send, every decision you make either strengthens or weakens the culture you want to create. Be intentional about the culture you are building and consistent in reinforcing it. The 27th principle is the discipline of systematic thinking in a world of chaos. While others react to individual events and isolated problems, great leaders see patterns, connections, and systems. They understand that most challenges are symptoms of deeper systemic issues, and most opportunities emerge from understanding how different elements interact. When Alan Mulally turned around Ford Motor Company, he did not just fix individual problems. He implemented a systematic approach called One Ford that aligned the entire organization around common goals, processes, and metrics. This systematic thinking allowed Ford to navigate the financial crisis without requiring a government bailout while competitors struggled. Train yourself to see beyond immediate symptoms to underlying causes.
Look for patterns. This systems thinking will help you make decisions that solve root causes rather than just addressing symptoms. The 28th principle is the power of storytelling to inspire and align. Great leaders are master storytellers who can take complex visions and transform them into compelling narratives that people can understand, remember, and share. Stories connect with people emotionally in ways that data and logic cannot. When Elon Musk talks about making life multiplanetary or accelerating the transition to sustainable transport, he is not just stating business objectives. He is telling stories about the future that inspire engineers, customers, and investors to join his mission. These stories create emotional connection and shared purpose that transcend traditional employee-employer relationships. Develop your ability to craft and communicate stories that illustrate your vision, values, and goals. Practice telling stories that help people see themselves as heroes in a larger narrative. Use specific examples, vivid details, and emotional content to make abstract concepts concrete and memorable. Remember that people will forget your statistics, but remember your stories. The 29th principle is the wisdom of managing energy, not just time. While most people focus on time management, great leaders understand that energy management is more important. They recognize that their energy levels affect the quality of their decisions, their ability to inspire others, and their capacity to handle stress and challenges. Arianna Huffington learned this lesson the hard way when she collapsed from exhaustion and woke up in a pool of blood. This experience led her to completely restructure how she approached leadership, prioritizing sleep, meditation, and renewal alongside productivity and achievement. The result was not decreased performance, but enhanced capability and sustained excellence. Pay attention to what gives you energy and what drains it. Structure your days to tackle high-energy tasks when you are at your peak and low-energy tasks when you naturally have less capacity. Invest in activities that restore and renew your energy and model healthy energy management for your team. Remember that sustainable leadership requires sustainable energy. The 30th principle is the courage to reinvent yourself before you have to. The most successful CEOs do not wait for external forces to demand change. They continuously evolve their skills, perspectives, and approaches to stay ahead of changing circumstances. They understand that the leader who got them to their current level may not be the leader needed for the next level. Reed Hastings has reinvented himself and Netflix multiple times, from DVD by mail to streaming, to original content creation, to global expansion. Each reinvention required him to develop new capabilities and abandon old assumptions about what Netflix could and should be. This willingness to self-disrupt prevented external disruption from making Netflix irrelevant. Regularly assess your own capabilities
and limitation. Identify the skills and knowledge you will need for future challenges, not just current ones. Be willing to invest time and effort in developing new competencies, even when your current skills are still serving you well. The most dangerous phrase in leadership is "this is how we have always done it." The 31st principle is the practice of building authentic relationships at scale.
That's where the kind that should go. Many leaders become distant from the people they lead. Great CEOs find ways to maintain personal connections and authentic relationships even as they scale their influence across thousands or tens of thousands of people. Mark Benioff at Salesforce regularly engages with employees at all levels through town halls, direct messages, and informal interactions. He remembers personal details about employees and their families, celebrates their achievements, and maintains genuine interest in their well-being. This authentic care scaled across the organization creates loyalty and engagement that transcends typical corporate relationships. Invest time in getting to know the people you lead as individuals, not just as employees. Remember details about their goals, challenges, and interests. Show genuine concern for their development and well-being. As you scale your leadership, find systematic ways to maintain these personal connections without losing authenticity. The 32nd principle is the discipline of decision-making under uncertainty. Most leadership decisions must be made with incomplete information and uncertain outcomes. Great leaders have developed frameworks and principles that help them make sound decisions even when they cannot predict all consequences. They are comfortable with ambiguity and able to act decisively despite uncertainty. When Andy Grove faced the decision to exit Intel's memory business, he did not have complete information about how successful the microprocessor business would become. But he had a framework for making strategic decisions that helped him choose the path that positioned Intel for decades of growth. The decision was painful and risky, but it was based on clear principles about focusing resources on areas of greatest potential. Develop your own decision-making framework that includes your values, key criteria for evaluation, and processes for gathering input. Practice making decisions with limited information and learn from both successes and failures. Remember that in leadership, not deciding is often the worst decision of all. The 33rd principle is the art of managing paradox and contradiction. Leadership often requires holding seemingly contradictory ideas in tension. Great leaders can be demanding yet supportive, confident yet humble, focused yet flexible. They understand that the most important leadership challenges cannot be solved with either or thinking, but require both and solutions. Steve Jobs was famous for being incredibly demanding of his teams, while also inspiring fierce loyalty. He created an environment where people did their best work by holding them to impossibly high standards, while also believing in their ability to achieve those standards. This paradox of high expectations and strong support created a culture of excellence that produced revolutionary products. Learn to embrace paradox rather than resolve it too quickly. Practice holding multiple perspectives simultaneously and look for solutions that honor competing values rather than choosing between them. The most powerful leadership often comes from integrating opposites rather than picking sides. The 34th principle is the commitment to creating value for all stakeholders, not just shareholders. The most sustainable and respected CEOs understand that long-term success requires creating value for customers, employees, communities, and shareholders simultaneously. This stakeholder approach leads to decisions that may sacrifice short-term profits for long-term sustainability and trust. When CVS decided to stop selling tobacco products, they gave up over $2 billion in annual revenue. CEO Larry Merlo made this decision because it aligned with the company's mission of helping people live healthier lives. While the decision was costly in the short term, it enhanced
CVS's reputation and positioned them as a trusted health partner for the long term. Consider the impact of your decisions on all stakeholders, not just the most vocal or powerful ones. Look for solutions that create shared value rather than zero-sum outcomes. Build relationships with all stakeholder groups so you understand their needs and can make decisions that serve the greater good. The 35th principle is the wisdom of leading through questions rather than answers. While people expect leaders to have all the answers, the best leaders know how to ask the right questions. Questions engage people's thinking, uncover hidden assumptions, and lead to better solutions than any single person could develop alone. Great questions also develop the thinking capacity of others, creating stronger teams and more sustainable leadership. When John F. Kennedy challenged America to land on the moon, he did not provide a detailed plan. Instead, he asked a powerful question: what would it take to get to the moon and back safely within a decade? This question mobilized the creativity and innovation of thousands of people who then developed solutions that Kennedy could never have conceived alone. Master the art of asking questions that provoke thinking, challenge assumptions, and open new possibilities. Learn to resist the temptation to provide immediate answers and instead guide others to discover solutions themselves.
This approach not only leads to better solutions, but also develops the capability of your team to solve future problems independently. The 36th principle is the practice of leading with purpose beyond profit. While profit is necessary for sustainability, the most inspiring leaders connect their work to purposes that transcend financial returns. They understand that people want to be part of something meaningful, and purpose provides the emotional fuel for sustained excellence and innovation. When Yvon Chouinard founded Patagonia, he was not just building a clothing company, he was creating a vehicle for environmental activism and education. This clear purpose attracted employees who were passionate about the mission, customers who wanted to support environmental causes, and partners who shared similar values. Purpose became a competitive advantage that no amount of marketing could replicate. Define a purpose for your leadership that goes beyond personal advancement or organizational profit. Connect your work to the impact it has on customers, communities, or causes you care about. Help others see how their individual contributions connect to this larger purpose. When people understand why their work matters, they will go above and beyond what any job description requires. The 37th principle is the discipline of continuous feedback and adaptation. Great leaders create multiple feedback loops that help them understand how their leadership is being received and what adjustments they need to make. They actively seek feedback from all directions, tests up, down, and sideways, and use this information to improve their effectiveness. Ray Dalio at Bridgewater Associates created a culture of radical transparency where feedback was not just encouraged, but required.
While his approach was extreme, the principle is sound. Leaders who actively seek and respond to feedback are more effective than those who operate in isolation. Regular feedback prevents small issues from becoming major problems and helps leaders adapt their style to changing circumstances and different people. Create formal and informal mechanisms for receiving feedback about your leadership effectiveness. Ask specific questions about what you could do differently or better. When you receive feedback, resist the urge to defend or justify your actions. Instead, thank people for their input and demonstrate through your actions that you take their feedback seriously. The 38th principle is the art of building coalitions and alliances. No leader achieves great things alone. The most successful CEOs are skilled at building networks of relationships that provide support, resources, and opportunities. They understand that leadership is ultimately about influence, and influence is enhanced through strong relationships with people who share common interests or complementary capabilities. When Mark Benioff was building Salesforce, he did not try to compete with every technology company. Instead, he built an ecosystem of partners who extended Salesforce's capabilities and reach. This coalition approach allowed Salesforce to grow faster and serve customers better than they could have alone.
The relationships Benioff built became a strategic advantage that competitors found difficult to replicate. Invest time in building relationships with people who share your values and complement your capabilities. Look for opportunities to help others achieve their goals, and they will be more likely to support your initiatives. Build coalitions around shared purposes rather than personal interests. Remember that the strength of your network often determines the scope of your influence. The 39th principle is the courage to confront brutal realities while maintaining optimistic vision. Great leaders possess what Jim Collins calls the Stockdale paradox, the ability to confront the most brutal facts about current reality while maintaining unwavering faith that they will prevail in the end. This combination of realism and optimism allows them to make necessary changes while inspiring others to continue working toward better outcomes. When Lou Gerstner took over IBM in the 1990s, he had to confront the brutal reality that the company was on the verge of bankruptcy and that its traditional business model was obsolete. At the same time, he maintained and communicated a vision of IBM as a service-oriented company that could help customers integrate technology solutions. This combination of honest assessment and optimistic vision guided IBM through one of the most successful corporate transformations in business history. Practice looking at your situation with unflinching honesty while maintaining hope and vision for what is possible. Help others understand current challenges without becoming discouraged about future possibilities. Use realistic assessment as the foundation for optimistic planning and action.
The relationships Benioff built became a strategic advantage that competitors found difficult to replicate. Invest time in building relationships with people who share your values and complement your capabilities. Look for opportunities to help others achieve their goals, and they will be more likely to support your initiatives. Build coalitions around shared purposes rather than personal interests. Remember that the strength of your network often determines the scope of your influence. The 39th principle is the courage to confront brutal realities while maintaining optimistic vision. Great leaders possess what Jim Collins calls the Stockdale paradox, the ability to confront the most brutal facts about current reality while maintaining unwavering faith that they will prevail in the end. This combination of realism and optimism allows them to make necessary changes while inspiring others to continue working toward better outcomes. When Lou Gerstner took over IBM in the 1990s, he had to confront the brutal reality that the company was on the verge of bankruptcy and that its traditional business model was obsolete. At the same time, he maintained and communicated a vision of IBM as a service-oriented company that could help customers integrate technology solutions. This combination of honest assessment and optimistic vision guided IBM through one of the most successful corporate transformations in business history. Practice looking at your situation with unflinching honesty while maintaining hope and vision for what is possible. Help others understand current challenges without becoming discouraged about future possibilities. Use realistic assessment as the foundation for optimistic planning and action. Tonight, the 40th principle is the wisdom of knowing when to lead and when to follow. Great leaders understand that leadership is not about always being in charge, but about ensuring that the right leadership emerges for each situation. Sometimes this means stepping back and allowing others to lead when they have greater expertise or better relationships for specific challenges. When Satya Nadella became CEO of Microsoft, he did not try to impose his vision on every part of the company. Instead, he identified areas where other leaders had greater expertise and empowered them to lead those initiatives while he focused on overall strategy and culture. This approach leveraged the full leadership capacity of the organization rather than creating bottlenecks around his individual decision-making. Develop the wisdom to know when your leadership is most needed and when it is best to support the leadership of others. Be secure enough to step back when someone else is better positioned to lead a particular initiative. Focus your leadership energy on the areas where you can make the greatest unique contribution. Remember that the goal is not to be the leader, but to ensure that great leadership happens. The 41st principle is the practice of making leadership development everyone's responsibility. While most organizations have formal leadership development programs, great leaders understand that leadership development happens through daily interactions and opportunities. They create cultures where developing leadership capacity is everyone's job, not just the responsibility of human resources or training departments. Jack Welch at General Electric was famous for spending 40% of his time on people development, but he also expected every leader in the organization to do the same.
This created a multiplier effect where leadership development was happening at every level and in every interaction. The result was a continuous pipeline of capable leaders who could take on greater responsibilities as the company grew. Look for opportunities in every interaction to develop the leadership capacity of others. Ask questions that provoke thinking, provide challenges that stretch capabilities, and give feedback that helps people grow. Create opportunities for others to lead projects and initiatives even when you could do them more quickly yourself. Remember that your ultimate success as a leader will be measured by the leaders you develop, not just the results you achieve. These 41 principles represent the distilled wisdom of leaders who have built some of the most successful organizations in human history. They are not theoretical concepts, but practical guidelines that have been tested in the crucible of real leadership challenges. The power of these principles lies not in knowing them, but in applying them consistently, especially when it is difficult, inconvenient, or costly to do so. Leadership is not about perfection, but about progress. It is not about having all the answers, but about asking better questions. It is not about being followed, but about being worth following.
Every day you have the opportunity to choose leadership, to apply these principles, to influence others positively, and to create something better than what existed before. The world needs leaders who understand these principles and have the courage to live by them. The question is not whether you can learn to lead, but whether you will choose to lead. The principles are here, tested by the most successful leaders in history and available to anyone willing to embrace them. Your leadership journey does not begin when you get a promotion or a title. It begins with your next decision, your next interaction, your next choice to put these principles into practice. The future is waiting for leaders who will build it with wisdom, courage, and service. The only question that remains is this: what will you do with what you now know? Will you be one of them?